now we're getting into schema theory, and I include this list here because I feel like maybe at the start of a class it helps students know where they're going, where they've been. Of course, you can edit these and delete them if you find that a waste of time to start your classes. Schema theory of memory, and that's the laundry for the laundry study. Okay, so hopefully they'll know 3 key claims of schema theory. Whenever I'm talking about cognitive models, always like to give students concrete, chunked bits of information, and you'll see this as we go through with the multi-store model, cognitive load theory, and schema theory. And if they can, and the rule of threes works great if they can just hold on to those building blocks, and then we'll look at how it affects memory. Quick review activity I thought here, just to get them thinking about the wider picture of the course, the 3 approaches, and maybe how these topics would fit into them. It's like normal, the right idea is less important as it is getting them to really just think about the words and to process it. Now, I have a confession, I've never done this in course. I was looking back at some old ideas from the blog post of mine where I asked a range of teachers to share some ideas on how they teach schema theory. And this one was shared, and there's an online resource as well, which is in the activities folder. So I'd be really curious to see how it goes in your classes. Try it. So 5 volunteers, 4 leave the room. Okay, and I've tried to put the slides here so you can just use these for your plans. You don't have to do too much extra planning. The remaining volunteer hears the story, and the rest of the class hears how the story changes. Now, this is the original, taken from the original task. I've credited the author somewhere. And a couple of key details in this. One is that the pilot is a female and the flight attendant is a male. So we're going to see, do the details change? So what happens here is you read this one to the first student. You could be reading this off the board while they face the rest of the class, and then one of the volunteers comes in. This obviously gets taken off the screen, and they try to retell the story, and then participant 2 tells it to number 3 who comes in, and you've still got 4 and 5 waiting outside, and then you do this until everyone has you've been through the list and the game of telephone or rumour chain or Chinese whispers has finished. Okay, and then there's space in the workbook for them to write down some notes and a classic Simpsons reference, just for good measure. Bernstein and Goss, right? So they predicted the story would get shorter, which in schema's leveling. Some specific details were retained called sharpening, and what we're looking at with assimilation is the details might change, and we can look at this with schema theory. So if sometimes someone might change the information to become more schema consistent, so if they change the gender of the pilot to be a male, for example, or the flight attendant to be a female. Be interesting to see what happens in your classes. Another idea, again, never tried this in class, so most of the things I share here are things I've tried before, but I wanted some new ideas for schema theory. This is, this one, no, sorry, I'm sorry. This is the Bransford and Johnson. Okay, this is a classic Branson-Johnson study. Now, instead of putting it all up here on the slides, you'll need to download these off the activities folder, and because it's got the it's easy to distribute the pieces of paper for the students to write down their answers, their comprehension, and what they remembered about the story. Right, we watched the clip on schema theory, and then a quick chalk talk of the original study. So 3 conditions, really simple. If they heard the title before, they had the best comprehension of the story. And why? It's because of schema, right? So because they could mentally picture about washing clothes, and they could connect the new information to that mental image. So now we get into the chalk talk, the 3 key claims. This is such an important claim of schema theory that cannot be overlooked. The fact is, we have schemas, because it's not a given. It's kind of hard, and one of the big weaknesses of this theory is this even falsifiable or testable? But that's it. Schemas exist. They organize our information and our knowledge, and they help us comprehend new information. There are lots more theory claims, but for me, I think we stick to these 3. It'd be fine. Okay, and then here's the explanation of the study. You may be running short of time, but here you could have some volunteers, give them a white piece of A4 paper or a mini whiteboard, ask them to draw a clock, and does it look like this? Okay, most of the clocks we see are digital. Why would they draw an analog? Similarly, draw a house. Does it look like this? A lot of them probably did, but when was the last time you saw a house that looked like this? So, why is this our mental representation of a house? Why is this our schema of a house? Okay, workbook notes. And they can try the doctor is his mother. Now, sometimes I am trying to be inclusive. And a lot of these homework tasks I'm saying, go home and talk to your family, talk to your parents, and in the back of my mind there's this little voice saying, oh, but what if they don't have parents? What if there's no family at home? What if they are an orphan? And I just think, well, we can't be not taking these opportunities to just use family language and family bonding because of the odd chance in the very small minority group of kids for whom this doesn't apply to. It just doesn't apply to them, and I just have to live with that. Anyway, you can adjust that if you like. Right, that little silly point finished. This is the end of schema theory. It is. You can see it's going to be challenging, this unit. Schema theory in 2 lessons, but we'll try to come back to it at other points of the course. We'll come back to it with maladaptive schema later, and that's probably where we can beef up schema theory. But for right now, that's it, and then we get into models of memory next.